the full 3 points with a 2-0 victory over IG.
That's the favorite of this tournament, Secret, showing their strength really. Like, there was no chance for IG in game 1. There was possibly, I'm not going to say less chance, but there was no chance in second game either.
Yeah, it felt really hopeless from the start, and everything worked for Secret. We'll have ourselves a break and be back here in a couple of moments' time for our third series of the day.
All right, so that wraps up our second match of the day. On this stream, of course, a couple other matches going on. But the second set, and Secret coming back 2-0 after their 1-1 tie against Fnatic, looking, I think, just as strong as most people expected. Of course, through not only us, but IG a little off with that Broodmother pick.
I think teams should take the PPD approach. Always ban it second phase, like every single time.
Yeah, and that's what we saw in most of our matches, or most of our games yesterday and today, right? Until this one. We've seen it, I think, banned almost in all of them, except for maybe one other match or something like that. But then this time it goes through, and they were just all on top of that. Secret was prepared. In fact, they seemed very ready and expecting it to kind of go through. They expected IG to forget about that ban against the Broodmother. They ran with it. On the side of IG, I mean, of course, an 0-2 loss, but day's far from over, and of course, the tournament is far from over. Winter, how do you feel about IG so far? This is our first time seeing them here at TI5.
I think they're really flustered though. Like you could see during the footage with Chuan, he wasn't he's very upset at a lot of things, when they were going through the replays and stuff. So I mean, it's definitely not a good way of having your team atmosphere for your first series. It's very negative, but hopefully after this they would sort things out, and actually I think the draft is their main issue in the last 2 games, so they would sort things out and get back to their old ways.
Okay, so when you say the draft is issues, then do you think, are we just coming back to the same point of they just try to stick to trying to go for something a little bit more aggressive early game, or you think there's just more to, is it simply the Broodmother ban
about
slipping
what
through?
They gave away, I think.
Okay.
Rather than their lineup. It's more about the Brood.
I'd agree with that. I personally don't think they had a bad draft in game 1. I actually think their draft against Secret was perfectly capable of winning that game. They got outplayed in that game. And in the second game, I think it was... They actually played better in the second game, but they very quickly just lost the grip on the map. It's what we said before the game even started. They're going to have multiple problems to address at the same time, and the moment you lose a little bit of focus or you make one mistake, that mistake doesn't just cost you a hero in the lane. It costs you a hero in another lane or a tower because of Brood. And, there were also a couple of moments of just flat-out brilliance from Secret in this.
Yeah.
A couple of team fights. I think especially Kuro, for me, was standout player in this game with his Spirit Breaker. Had a couple of more or less suicidal charges that actually won team fights where he gets like 3 or 4 heroes in the charge, sets up for Crystal Maiden Ultimate. A very uncharacteristic combination of spells, but worked beautifully for them. And in my book, Zai is the best Brood player in the world. And I would not give this hero to Secret because they utilize it in another way than every other team does. So at least most other teams, who doesn't, you just you build a house, right? You build a house and then you stick around your house. But Zai keeps moving his house around.
You build many houses.
Yeah. So instead of building a house, he builds like a whole city from the top to the mid lane. And then he has like this railroad that he just takes in between. And he is very good at being active and cooperating with the team, where a lot of other teams you see Brood is like, the team is 4 and 5 and Brood is doing her thing in another lane. And they have found a way of incorporating it into the style very, very well. I think it's so scary to give it away. I would never do that in the second phase, ever. I agree. Just ban it second phase no matter what.
Yeah, that is a good point you bring up. That generally when you see that picked, it's like, all right, it's only annoying because it's like, she'll always be doing her own thing separately. But as you mentioned, that's not the case we saw with Secret. We do have a replay showing again how just well Secret has been playing. Of course, it is in the second game where we're saying the draft may have mattered a little bit. But I think you brought up a good point. Often.
Kuro has a lot of calculated aggression, and he sees Alina out of position, and look at Puppy's positioning in the forest, being able to set up
this charge is phenomenal.
Yeah.
That right.
Oh wow.
And he eventually dies to the Quill Spray, but Bristleback is the most farmed hero on the Dire team. He can't afford to die like that, especially when he's the main Brood killer. And Zai is just able to take control of that whole top area of the map because of that. And yeah, again, the web placement and moving into the mid lane and forcing the Bristle to move, I think, is a huge deal, right? Because Brood free farming is whatever, but if she's able to dominate your other lanes, you have to react. You can't just trade free farm on the Bristle because of that.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have another replay, of course, a Team White this time. between Secret and IG. So we'll be taking a look at that as we finish. Yeah, every time we come into a replay, it's just webs everywhere, right? So
this just looks like miscommunication between the IG players. They use an aggressive hex, and then the quad actually backs off. Quad's like, okay, this is not the play, and the others are starting to move in, and that hex is like their only counterplay to Brood. It was talked about in the game. They have like one stun, which is Lina, and it's not reliable. So if they want to control, and perhaps even hexing Brood in the first place is a bad place. You need it for one of the other heroes that deals a lot more damage. So that was just, you could tell they were desperate at this point. Like, we have to do something with one.
Yeah. After a little bit of a desperation play. But hey, sometimes that's what it takes. We talked about that earlier. Those are the plays where if it works, you look like the genius, you look like you had the most calculated risk, but at the same time, if it doesn't, I mean, yeah, sure, it looks a little bad, but you have to take that, especially if you're not in a good place in the game.
The chance of looking like a genius by hexing someone and running away is very low. Like, there are very few plays I can imagine.
Well, I didn't mean the full follow-through of that, but I meant the initial start of it.
I know, I'm just kidding.
Well, we never know. Never know. We might come into a game one day where hexing and running away was the absolute most genius play. Maybe it's the last play we see at TI5.
You know what? Maybe when he blinked hex, he saw a lot of mines there, so he backed off.
There you go. That could be a genius play. You never know.
If that happens later on in the tournament, this guy has been predicting really, really well. So.
All right. I don't know if anyone's really excited to see that later in the tournament, but we can hope. We can hope. So we do have quite a few. The standings a little bit updated, of course, with this match wrapping up. So we'll take a look at that right behind us. So LGD actually wrapped up their match, and now they're 6 points ahead. So I think we can all assume, we were trying to run through scenarios here, but if you're already 2 matches wins and 2 zeros at that, you're in a really good place, right? Because if you get, 3-4, especially, if you get 4 2-0s, like, you're set. You're definitely in that top 4, maybe even number 1 spot in your group. So LGD doing pretty well. Secret has climbed back up now with the 3 points at 4 points. Complexity now at 3 points. Not a bad place to be. 1 win, 1 loss, and of course Fnatic with that tie. And then we have the rest with losses. Navi not having finished up their match yet against C9.
C9's ahead 1-0 in that one, though.
C9 is ahead 1. See, I said it. I said you can't ever tell until the very end of the game, and C9 came back and won that game. So
games with Navi against Cloud9 are just going to be chaotic, kind of no matter what, because both teams are like super aggressive and are apparently really good at like drawing out games and. It's very hard to predict how it goes. And Navi looked like they had the game in the bag, actually. Yep. And then they had a couple of fights where they kind of threw away their lead and C9 took it over. So kind of the reverse Cloud9 from previous series.
Right.
It either happens to them or they do it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay, that's a good way to put it.
Every Cloud9 game so far has been over an hour.
Yeah, that's something to talk about. I mean, they start off the tournament, they've played over, maybe 3.5 hours of gameplay already in just 3 games. So
it's good for them. They don't have to play like 4 series in a day.
They're the ones who keeps everyone up until like late at night. Yeah, we don't want to see that. But coming up, we do have one more set of matches, at least here for Group A, and then we will get to Group B. So Group B, again, not updated yet. We haven't had any matches, but we will get to them in the later half of the day. Now, we have the end of Navi Cloud9. I just heard a little bit of a highlight there. Cloud9 coming back and taking that win against Navi, so we'll get to take a look at that.
Envy with another rapier. So he's up to 2 rapiers today. He's got 2 out of 3 rapiers purchased. The last one was by Ember Spirit of Maybe, I think, against Cloud9. So all the rapier games have been Cloud9 games.
Oh, there you go. That's another
Those are also the 1 hour long games, so perhaps there's like a
bit of a correlation
there.
Yeah, and Envy is just huge. He is Superman right now with Lotus Orb and Rapier and Butterfly and BKB. He is nigh invincible, and I thought that Navi made the Solar pick work out pretty well throughout the game, but he was just really weak when it came to one-on-one later with Equal Farm.
And what we didn't see in that clip, right after this happened, Envy paused the game and said, "Sorry, my headset fell off." So supposedly his headset fell off and hit the F9 key. I think Ben was like, that sounds really unlikely. Like,
I mean, some headsets are big though, right? Maybe they hit like all the keys, including F9.
He got super excited, just like, yes, and then just straight down on F9.
Straight on F9. That's where it landed. Only key that would press pause the game. So a neat little trick to remember for your next game, Ben. There you go. You can keep that one in mind. So that one, of course, they have to play their second game before they can move on. So that's going to be a little while, perhaps. I think we can assume with those two. On our stream, next up, this is a little bit interesting, too, because now we're going to see Fnatic versus IG. So both teams have played one game. In fact, both against Secret. Fnatic, of course, time 1-1. IG lost 0-2. But the interesting point here, I think I want to bring up, is that we've been talking about early game aggression against Secret. Fnatic has done that successfully. IG was not able to, even from the drafting phase, especially in Game 2. Is that going to play a role in Fnatic versus IG? What do you think, Winter?
I think both of the teams have, like, I was talking to Ben before, like, I feel both of the teams play very similarly. They focus a lot on laning and getting a huge advantage from ganking and securing kills and securing the lanes for their cause. So it should be a pretty interesting, like, a lot of fights and stuff happening in the laning phase, provided there's no Brood again. So, because Ohio does play a very good Brood, so hopefully IG doesn't let that happen and pick supports that can't deal with it again, like what happened to Secret, and we'll be going to see a very much action-packed early game from those two teams.
Yeah, I mean, I think going off of what Cinder and Ben were saying earlier, hopefully IG has just picked that up and said, all right, let's ban it second phase every time. We just don't want to deal with it.
Sometimes it's like, just do it instead of like, okay, maybe we can get away with it. Like, you just don't risk it, you know?
Right? Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those scenarios, one of the few heroes where you're like, yeah, sure, you can have those for instance, we saw it with Lesh, right? It's like, all right, we could give it away and then just go straight counter bans, but then, all right, suddenly Lesh support, not so useful. So there is a risk factor in there. Could have a similar scenario with Brewmother. What do you two think about Fnatic and IG coming up?
Yeah, I would agree. I think Brood will not be seen. It's funny to me. It happens like every single tournament. There's like there's at least one or two Brood games where it's like, oh, we forgot Brood. You know, you just don't. You don't even need to see the players. You just start seeing how much time they take per pick, and you just know this was not the plan. It always
shit happens, you know.
Yeah,
so.
It really is one of those shit happens moments. I think going into the matchup, I will consider Fnatic the favorites. I have really not been impressed by IG in the series against Secret. They got outdrafted in Game 2. They got outplayed in Game 1. I was expecting Secret to be favorites, but I think they were a bit too dominant for what IG need to be playing against Fnatic. Maybe the most likely outcome is a draw, actually, because they might play a good game, but I don't see IG winning, at least.
Oh, okay. What about you, Ben?
I think IG stands a chance. I think they were just thrown off in Secret